Life on Earth has existed for 3.8 billion years, surviving giant asteroids, ice ages, and mass extinctions that killed almost everything. Somehow, tiny bubbles of chemistry transformed into dinosaurs, then into birds, and eventually into beings that can ask questions about their own existence, us. But here's the shocking truth that might change how you see yourself forever. Every living thing on Earth, from a simple bacteria to you watching this right now, shares the same basic code of life. We are all part of a single family that started with one mysterious first life form. But what really made that first spark of life happen? And if life isn't unique to Earth, what does that mean for our future in the universe? Subscribe to the channel, hit like and comment where in the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. What makes something alive and not just a stone or a drop of water? When you look at a tree, a dog, or even your own hands, how do you know that these things are alive and not just things? This is a very important question because it helps us understand what life really is. Living things have special abilities that things like rocks, water, or air do not have. If you pick up a stone and leave it on the ground, you will come back after many years and it may still look and feel the same. The stone does not grow or change on its own. It does not use energy. It cannot make more stones just like itself. It cannot feel heat or cold. It does not care if you touch it or leave it alone. The stone just exists. It is there because the forces of nature put it in that place, and if nothing moves it, it will stay there. Now, think of a tree. If you plant a small seed in the ground and care for it, you will see it change every day. At first, nothing may happen, but after some time the seed will open and a small green shoot will appear. This means the seed is alive. It uses water and warmth from the sun to get bigger and stronger. It grows roots to find water and food in the soil. The little shoot becomes a stem and then grows leaves. In many years, that single seed will become a tall tree with strong branches, flowers, and sometimes even fruits and seeds of its own. The tree can make more seeds that will one day become new trees. There are some things that every living thing can do. Scientists use these things as signs of life. The first thing is that living things can grow, no matter if it is a tiny cell, a plant, or a person. All living things start small and get bigger. Growth does not happen in rocks or water. The second thing is that living things can use energy. Energy is what lets something move, change, and keep working. You need energy to walk, to think, to breathe, and even to sleep. A dog runs and jumps, a bird flies, a plant turns sunlight into food. All these things are possible because living things can use energy from food, from the sun, or from other things around them. Rocks do not use energy. Water can flow down a hill because of gravity, but it does not use energy to do this by itself. The third thing is that living things can make more things like themselves. This is called reproduction. When a bird lays eggs or a plant makes seeds, it is making new life. Reproduction is very important because it makes sure that there are always enough living things to replace the old ones as they die. Animals have babies, plants grow new plants, and even the smallest living things can copy themselves. Without this ability, life would quickly disappear from the earth. The fourth thing is that living things can sense what is happening around them and react. This is called responding to the environment. You can feel heat, cold, pain, and happiness. When you touch something hot, you move your hand away very quickly. Dogs bark when they hear a strange sound. Plants even know when the sun is shining or when it is dark, and they turn their leaves to catch more light. Bacteria and other tiny creatures can move towards food or away from danger. These are all ways that living things sense what is happening and respond to it. So what makes life different from things that are not alive? It is having these abilities to grow, to use energy, to make more things like themselves, and to sense and react to what is around them. Scientists look for these signs when deciding if something is alive or not. When you see a cat, a person, or a tall tree, you know these are living because they can change. They use energy all the time, and they can make copies of themselves, even if you cannot see it with your eyes. Even when living things do not look like they are doing anything, they are always active inside. Your body is full of millions and millions of tiny parts called cells. Each cell is doing many small jobs all the time. Your heart is beating, your lungs are bringing in air, your blood is carrying food and air to every part of your body. When you are asleep, your body is still using energy and growing or repairing itself. If you look at any living thing, even a simple one like a tiny grass seed, there are things happening on the inside every moment. These activities need energy. Without energy, life cannot continue. But not every moving thing is alive. For example, a river moves, but it is not alive. The wind moves, but it is not alive. A car can even move very fast and make noise, but the car only moves because a person drives it or because its engine uses fuel. A river flows because of gravity pulling the water from higher ground to lower ground. Wind blows because of changes in air pressure and temperature. These things are not alive because they do not grow, they do not use energy by themselves, they do not make more rivers or cars, or sense and react in the ways living things do. If you take a rock and put it in water, it does not soak up water like a seed does. A seed drinks the water, uses the energy stored inside it, and starts to grow. The rock will not change. It will just sit there. If you put a grain of wheat in soil, it will start to change right away. The tiny plant inside the seed will wake up and use the food stored in the seed. It will push out a little root to look for water. The shoot will push upward toward the light. Even though you cannot see it, this is life in action. In a few days you will see a green sprout, then leaves, and after some time, a new wheat plant. This shows you the difference between living and non-living things. Living things also need to keep their inside conditions just right, so they do not get too hot, too cold, too dry, or too wet. This is called keeping balance. Your body stays close to the same temperature all the time, even if it is cold or hot outside. If you get too hot, you sweat to cool down. If you get too cold, you shiver to warm up. These actions help your body stay alive. Animals jump in the shade to get cool or find water when they are thirsty. Trees let extra water out through their leaves. Every living thing has a way to keep its body working inside. Living things can be very different from each other. A tiny, single-celled bacterium can be alive, just like an elephant. A mushroom is alive, even though it does not look like an animal or a plant. Every flower, every bush, every fish in the river, and every person you meet are all alive. Some things are very big, and some are very small, but they all share the same special signs of life. Scientists spend a lot of time learning more about what makes something alive. Sometimes they find things that do not fit perfectly into these signs. For example, some viruses are made of small pieces that look like living things, but they cannot use energy or grow by themselves. A virus needs to enter a living cell before it can do anything. Scientists are still debating if viruses are really alive or not. But for most things, the four main signs, growing, using energy, reproducing, and responding, are a good way to know if something is living. When you look at pictures of the Earth from space, our planet looks blue, green, and white. The blue is water, the green is land and plants, and the white is clouds. Most of the green on the Earth comes from plants that are alive. The brown and gray parts are rocks and soil. Water, air, and rocks cover much of the earth, but only certain places have the right things for life. Almost every place you look where there is air, water, and the right temperature, you will find something alive. Living things can come in many forms. You may see a big tree, but there are also tiny things living on its bark, in its leaves, or in the soil near its roots. You may see a dog or a cat, but many smaller living things are on their skin or in their fur, so small you cannot see them without a microscope. In every drop of pond water, there are millions of tiny living things. Life is almost everywhere you look, even if you cannot see it right away. Some things, like stones or metals or drops of rain, are not alive because they cannot do these special things. They have no way to use energy, to grow, to react, or to make new things like themselves. Stones may break or wear away. Rain may fall and dry up, but these are changes caused by the world around them, not by the thing itself. You might wonder, how did all these living things come to be so different? How can a single seed grow into a tree while a bird hatches from an egg? How is a person made from a single cell from their mother and father? How did life begin? And how did it become all the many kinds of living things we see? These are big questions, but the answer always starts with the same special abilities of life: to grow, use energy, make more things like themselves, and sense or react to the world. The story of life is not just about the things we see moving or changing. It is about something that happens deep inside every living thing. Living things work in very special ways at every moment to keep alive and to pass on life to the next generation. Even when you rest or sleep, your body is still alive and working. Every living thing is a part of this ongoing story. If you look around you right now, you can see examples of life everywhere. People walking, birds flying, insects crawling, plants standing tall, and even the green moss on the wet stones are all alive. All of these things share the abilities to grow, to use energy, to reproduce, and to react to the world. Even if they look different or act in new ways, they all have these signs of life. Knowing what life is will help you understand more about the world. It will explain why you and everything alive are different from the things that are not alive. When you see a leaf moving in the wind or a worm digging in the soil, you can remember that you are watching a living thing. When you see stones or sand, you know they do not have these abilities. Life makes our world active and always changing. Every living thing is doing something, even if we cannot see it. Some things, like a tree, change slowly. Others, like a bird or a little bug, can move quickly. But at every moment, life means activity inside, using energy, growing, and making more things like itself. The difference between living and non-living things is very important. It helps us take care of nature, plants, animals, and even ourselves. By knowing what signs to look for, we can help living things thrive and protect the places where they live. Life is special because it is always active, always changing, and always passing from one generation to the next. This is what makes living things different from everything else on Earth. Long ago, the Earth was a place without any grass, animals, or people. The ground was covered with hot rocks, the air was very thick, and there was no blue sky as you see today. The oceans were much different, and no one could walk on land. If you could have visited this world, you would not have found a single living thing. There were no plants, no trees, no birds, no insects, and no fish. The whole Earth was just quiet and empty, but Earth was not always going to be empty. Special changes were happening even though no one was around to see them. Scientists believe that life began a very, very long time ago. They say that this could have happened around 3,800,000,000 years ago. That is much longer than people or even animals have been alive. This time is so far back that it is even hard to imagine. At this time, Earth was a young planet. There were clouds of gas, heavy rains, lightning, and many volcanoes. The land was hot and the sea was filled with different kinds of chemicals. These chemicals were simple at first. Some of them were things like water, carbon dioxide, and ammonia. They mixed together in the oceans, where the water was warmer near the bottom. There were no living cells yet. The only things on Earth were small pieces called molecules. These molecules are made from tiny parts called atoms. Atoms make up everything that exists, and molecules are groups of atoms joined together. Molecules can be simple, like water, or more complex, like the ones inside living things. The ocean was just full of these small molecules, moving around, bumping into each other, and sometimes joining together. Over time, something special started to happen. The energy from sunlight, heat from volcanoes, and even lightning gave power to the chemicals in the oceans. Scientists think these kinds of energy made some molecules join in different ways. Simple molecules stuck together to make bigger and more complex molecules. Some of these new molecules could store energy. Some could stick to others and build longer chains. These were important changes, even though they happened very slowly. Millions of years passed with molecules joining, coming apart, and joining again. The oceans became like a soup of chemicals, with many different kinds of molecules mixing in the water. In some places, these molecules formed even bigger groups. Some began to act in ways that were almost like life. A few could make copies of themselves. Others could take in energy from the sun or from warm water near volcanoes. Bit by bit, these changes set the stage for something completely new. The most important step was when a group of molecules formed a tiny bag with a soft wall around it. This bag could hold the other molecules inside and keep them safe from the water outside. The wall was very thin, made from special molecules that could let some things in and keep other things out. Inside the bag, chemical reactions started to happen. These reactions made it possible for the bag to grow bigger, to collect more food, and even to make a copy of itself. This tiny bag is what scientists call a cell. The first living cells were very simple. Each one was just a small bag of water with some special molecules in it. The cell could take in food from the water around it and use energy from the sun or from chemicals. Inside, the cell could make copies of the important molecules. When the bag became too full, it would split in two, and then there would be two cells where there was just one before. This is how life began. Imagine how many times the first cells had to copy themselves over millions of years. Every time a cell made a copy, there was a chance that something small could change inside it. Sometimes this made the new cell even better at living. This slow change in cells made life stronger and helped new kinds of cells appear. These first cells did not eat plants or animals because there were no plants or animals yet. They took energy from simple chemicals in the water or from light. The world was still very simple, but these cells were alive. They could do all the things that make something alive. They could grow, use energy, make more of themselves, and sense small changes in the water around them. Over a long time, more changes happened. Some cells learned to use sunlight to make their own food. This process is called photosynthesis. With photosynthesis, cells took in sunshine, water, and a gas called carbon dioxide from the air or the water around them. They made food for themselves and let out another gas called oxygen. Little by little, more oxygen went into the ocean and then into the air. This new oxygen began to fill the Earth's atmosphere, making it possible for even more types of life to appear. This change took hundreds of millions of years, but it was very important. Before there was oxygen, no animals or people could breathe. Oxygen helps living things get energy out of food. As the amount of oxygen in the air grew, new cells appeared that were even better at using energy. Some cells could work together with others, forming small groups. These groups made life more complex. Even though the first cells were small, simple, and alone, they were the start of everything you see alive today. Every living thing, whether it is a tree, a fish, a dog, or a person, came from these early cells. The way these cells worked and the way they joined together made all future life possible. How did these first cells form? Scientists have many ideas. Some think that the right mix of chemicals, water, and energy in the early oceans made these changes possible. Others think that the heat near undersea volcanoes gave the power needed for new molecules to join. Lightning from early storms could have helped too. There is also a question about whether some of the special molecules needed for life came from space, arriving on rocks or ice that hit Earth from other places. Scientists have found some of these special molecules in meteorites, which are rocks that have fallen from space. In modern times, scientists try to learn more by making small copies of the early Earth in their labs. They mix together the chemicals that existed long ago and use energy to make changes. Sometimes, simple molecules join together to make more complex ones. These experiments help scientists understand how life could begin, but no one has yet made a real living cell from simple chemicals in the lab. The answer to how life started is still a big mystery. Even though the very first cells were tiny and simple, everything alive on Earth today comes from them. Over a very long time, these small cells changed in many ways. Some learned to live in places that were very hot, like pools near volcanoes. Others found homes deep under the sea or even in very cold places. Some cells lived in groups while others stayed alone. A few began to build hard walls around themselves for protection, and others grew tails or little hair-like parts to help them move. Those small changes inside cells happened very slowly. Some made cells stronger, faster, or better able to find food. Cells that were not as good at living died out. The ones that were better at surviving made more copies of themselves. This way, good changes were passed on, and bad changes did not last. These little changes happening again and again are what led to the first living things and then to all the many kinds of life we see now. The beginning of life did not happen quickly. It took millions and millions of years for the first cells to appear, and even longer for life to become more complex. But over that huge amount of time, life went from small and simple to much bigger and more interesting shapes. This is why living things today can be so different from each other, yet still share some small parts deep inside their cells. Inside every cell, no matter how small, there are special molecules that carry instructions. These instructions are what tell the cell how to grow, how to use energy, and how to make more cells. Scientists call these molecules DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA acts like a book or a recipe, but instead of words, it uses a code written in tiny pieces inside each cell. Every living thing today, even a tiny bacterium or a big elephant, has DNA in its cells. This DNA goes back to the first cells that ever lived. The changes that happened to the first cell's DNA made new living things possible. When DNA makes copies, small changes sometimes happen. These changes are called mutations. Some mutations are not helpful, but some make the new cell better at living. Good mutations are passed on when cells make more of themselves, and this is how life became more and more complex over time. Learning to understand the steps that led to the first living cells also helps us see how wonderful life is. It shows how small and simple things can become bigger, stronger, and more suited to living in our world. By learning about how life began, We also learn about how living things can change and fit into many different places. Some people wonder if life could start again on other planets or moons. Scientists look at places like Mars or icy moons around big planets to try to find signs of life. If there is water, the right chemicals and energy, maybe simple cells like those on early Earth could appear in other places too. No one has found proof of life outside Earth yet, but the search continues. If they find something, even if it is very small and simple, it would help us understand more about how life began everywhere. On our own planet, even after the first cells appeared, the world was still changing. The air slowly filled with more oxygen, oceans cooled down a little, and some places on land became easier for life. The early cells that could use oxygen were able to get more energy from food. These cells became ancestors to much of the life that is around us today. After a long time, some cells learned to join together and form bigger groups. These groups of cells could do more things than single cells could do by themselves. Some began to form simple plants, and others started the long journey towards becoming animals. Life was not just single cells anymore. It started to become many different forms and shapes. Understanding the start of life helps us know why every living thing has things in common. Even if a tree, a mushroom, and a person look different, deep inside their cells are instructions that work in much the same way. They all use DNA to keep living and to make the next generation. They all need water, energy, and the right mix of chemicals to stay alive. The process that began in the early oceans, with small molecules joining together and making the first cells, is the start of the biggest story on Earth. Without that first step, there could be no plants, animals, or people. Life could only become so many shapes, colors, and sizes because it started very simple and took a long time to change. As the conditions on Earth kept changing, early cells had to find new ways to survive. They found energy in many forms. Some ate chemicals from rocks, some found food in tiny drops of water, and some used sunlight. Their bodies also changed so they could live in very hot, salty, or cold places. The world became full of many different kinds of single cells, all working in their own ways to stay alive. Some of these changes made life more successful. The cells that were able to get more energy or copy themselves faster made more and more new cells. Other cells died out. Little by little, these good changes led to new kinds of life, each a little better at living in their special place. Over a long time, the oceans, lakes, and rivers filled up with a huge number of different single-celled living things. Finally, after millions and millions of years, some cells began to join their strengths together. A few cells began to work as a team. Some became very good at moving, others at finding or making food, and some at holding everything together. These simple teams were the first step towards the bigger plants, animals, and other living things that would one day fill the world. Every living thing you see today has a family story that goes all the way back to those first tiny cells. Even though those first steps were slow and took a long time, they made life possible for everything that came after. Through their simple changes and their ability to copy themselves, the world became full of life. Learning about these early times helps you see why all living things need water, energy, and the right chemicals. It shows how small changes in the beginning led to the big active world we see now. The first cells could only do a little, but over time they made everything we call life today possible. The journey from those early simple cells to the huge number of living things around us is a story that is still going on. Every part of life now can be traced back to those quiet, slow beginnings in Earth's early oceans, when life was just starting to appear. As time moved forward, the simple cells that were the first forms of life did not stop changing. These tiny cells had already found ways to survive in many different places. Some lived in warm water deep below the surface, while others found tiny spaces in rocks or mud. A few needed light from the sun to make their food, and others lived on chemicals they found around them. Each small cell kept making copies of itself, sometimes with small changes, and these changes slowly created new kinds of living things. The tiny differences in new cells were important. Some of these differences helped a cell live longer or make more copies of itself. If a cell could find food more easily or use energy better, that cell's copies would be more common. When these helpful changes happened over a very long time, they made living things grow more complex. This process of small changes leading to bigger and better ways to live is called evolution. Evolution takes place over many generations, sometimes over millions or even billions of years. Some cells stayed simple. These are still with us today as bacteria and other small living things you cannot see without a microscope. But not all cells stayed alone. At some point, some cells began to join together and work as a team. This was a very special change because working together made new things possible. Some cells would take care of making food, others would help hold the team together, and a few would help the whole group move. This made the group stronger than single cells working alone. When a group of cells began to live and work as one, they could become much bigger than single cells. Over time, different jobs in the group made new shapes and forms. Some became long, thin threads in the water, while others made flat sheets or even simple balls. These were the first steps toward plants and animals that we see today. With more cells working together, living things started to create new kinds of life. They could use sunlight, water, and simple gases to make food and grow bigger. Small changes in the way the cells joined and worked together made it possible for life to take on many different forms. Some became the first simple plants living in the water. Others began to find new ways to move, swim, or use food. For a very long time, life was only in the water. Earth's land was still empty of living things. Oceans and lakes were full of new kinds of life that were slowly becoming more complex. These living things filled the water with many shapes, sizes, and colors. Some grew into chains, some formed small balls, and others made flat floating mats on water's surface. A very important group of these new life forms used sunlight to make food. They changed light, water, and carbon dioxide into food for themselves. As they made food, they let out oxygen as a part of this process. The oxygen slowly built up in the water and in the air over millions of years. This slow rise in oxygen changed the Earth forever. More oxygen in the air made it possible for new kinds of cells to use that oxygen to get more energy from food. As more oxygen filled the world, living things changed again. Some cells learned to survive much better using oxygen, and their copies became common. These were the first true ancestors of plants and animals that would fill the world. Over time, small groups of cells working together became the first simple plants. The first animal-like living things also began their story in water. Some cells that once floated alone joined together, but instead of making food from sunlight, they ate other living things or bits of food in the water. This was new. They could move to look for food instead of waiting for food to come to them. These early animal-like cells could sense changes around them, move toward food, and swim away from danger. Slowly, over millions of years, living things in water began to look different from each other. Some were good at making food from light and became the first plants. Others were good at swimming and eating things and became the ancestors of animals. Some lived only in bright light near the surface, others moved deeper into the water. Each small step, each tiny change, gave new living things a better chance in the world around them. More changes brought about even more complexity. different groups of cells started to form tissues. Tissues are groups of cells working together to do special jobs. Some tissues helped a living thing move, others helped it take in food, and some protected it from the outside. Then, tissues began to form organs which do even more complex jobs, such as making food, moving, or sensing light. The first plants started to cover the water with green. Over a very long time, some plants found a way to live in places where the water met the land. These early plants could grow on damp rocks or mud at the edge of water. Little by little, they adapted to living outside of water. They became better at living in dry places, growing roots, stems, and leaves. They learned to use the sun and air in new ways. As plants moved to land, they made the surface of the earth change. Their roots broke up rocks and helped make new soil. They covered the ground with green leaves. Plants became food for new types of living things. Some animals in the water learned to come up to the edge of land to find plants to eat. Over a huge amount of time, a few animal-like creatures changed their bodies to move on land. These were the very first small animals to live on Earth's surface. In water and then on land, new kinds of plants and animals continued to appear, always through small changes passed from parent to child. The first land animals were small and simple. Some could crawl, others could hop or wriggle. Little by little, their bodies changed as new forms that helped them survive spread through families. Some developed legs, some grew harder skin, and some learned to breathe air instead of taking in oxygen from water. As more animals lived on land, evolution gave rise to new types. Some animals learned to lay eggs in dry places. Others started to grow tough outer coverings to keep water inside their bodies. Each new step came from small changes that helped a living thing survive in its world. These changes were passed to its children and then to the next generation after that. Plants also changed. Some spread their seeds on the wind, others made flowers and fruit to help seeds travel and grow. Some grew tall to reach sunlight, others made wide leaves to collect as much light as possible. Every part of a plant or animal was shaped by these small changes. Over millions of years, plants and animals became more and more diverse, living in forests, grasslands, deserts, and everywhere else. Back in the water, new life forms kept appearing. Fish were among the first animals with bones inside their bodies. Some fish developed strong fins that let them move better, then slowly changed these into legs for moving on land. This big step allowed their children and future generations to leave water and live in new places, far from lakes and rivers. On land, new animals kept evolving. Some became small creatures that crawled on the ground, while others grew bigger and faster. Some developed wings and learned to fly, filling the world with birds and other flying animals. Some animals returned to water and became whales, dolphins, and seals, carrying their land bodies back into the sea. This long process of change, from the first cells through plants and early animals, is what made the world full of so many living things. Every new animal, bird, insect, or plant you see is the result of millions and millions of small changes happening over time. Life went from very simple cells in water to animals as large as whales or as small as ants, to trees that touch the sky, and to tiny flowers that grow close to the ground. All these living things have something in common. Whether it is a giant tree or a small worm, they are all made of cells. Each cell carries the story of life's long history. Inside every cell, there are instructions written in DNA that tell the cell how to grow, survive, and make new living things. These instructions are like a link that connects every living thing back to the first tiny cells in the water. Even today, the process of evolution continues. Plants, animals, and bacteria keep changing with every generation. Some living things will adapt to new places, new climates, or new situations. Others may disappear if they cannot adapt. In every place on Earth, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains, you can find living things that have changed in their own ways to survive. All of this is possible because of the process of evolution. Tiny changes are made in the instructions of living things each time they make copies of themselves. Sometimes these changes are not helpful, and the new living thing does not survive for long. Other times, the change is helpful and gives the new living thing a better chance to find food, stay safe, or have babies. Over a long time, the helpful changes are passed on and make living things stronger or better suited to their world. This is why there is such a wide range of different plants and animals. All of them share a connection to the first simple cells, but each new group found its own way to live and grow. Some animals eat plants, while others eat other animals. Some plants get their food from sunlight, while others use special tricks to survive in dark or dry places. Though the world is now full of many kinds of life, the start was small and slow. The first cells joined to become simple plants and animals in water. Those simple living things became many different forms, each finding their own way to survive. As they filled the world, they also began to change where they lived. Plants made the land green and full of food. Animals dug into the soil or built nests in trees, and every small change opened more places for life to grow. No matter what shape or size, every living thing has cells that keep it alive. The process of small changes, passed down for billions of years, made it possible for all the life we know today. The story of these changes continues in every plant, animal, and tiny living thing on Earth, creating the wide variety we now see. Understanding how life changed from simple cells to complex forms also helps to see how everything is connected. A bird, a fish, a tree, or even a small bacterium in the soil, all started from the same first steps. Life's history is the story of these endless changes and new forms, all built on the same basic ways of living and surviving. Each cell is busy inside, using energy, following its instructions, and helping the living thing grow and make new life. Life's long history has filled the world with forests, oceans, grasslands, deserts, and cold, icy places. Everywhere there is water, the right chemicals and energy, something living can find a way to survive. All of this comes from the first small changes in ancient oceans when life was simple. Now, life is everywhere and always changing, as living things respond to where they live and what they need. In the world around you, every shape, color, and kind of living thing is a sign of life's long journey. Every animal, plant, and tiny living thing keeps evolving, growing, and making the world filled with new kinds of life. By looking closely at all living things, you can see how life has moved from simple cells to all the complex forms that fill the Earth today. In the world today, everything that is alive is made up of very small parts called cells. These cells are like tiny pieces that join together to build all living things. Every plant, every animal, every person, and even the smallest forms of life are made from cells. Some living things are made of just one cell. Others are made of millions or even trillions of cells working together. Cells are so small that you cannot see them without a microscope. A microscope is a tool that makes tiny things look big. If you look at a drop of pond water through a microscope, you will see many moving shapes. These are tiny forms of life called microbes. Each little shape is one cell, living and working by itself. The first cells to appear on Earth were just single cells. This means each cell lived on its own, not joined with others. These first cells did everything they needed to stay alive. They found food, used energy, got rid of waste, and made more cells by dividing in two. Each new cell came from an older cell splitting apart. Over a long time, these single cells changed in small ways. Some became better at finding food. Others learned to move. Some learned to make food from sunlight. Some living things like bacteria are single-celled even today. Bacteria are everywhere. They live in soil, in water, on rocks, and even inside the bodies of animals and people. Even though they are very small, bacteria are important because they help clean the environment, break down dead things, and make the soil good for plants. Cells are more than just small bags of water. They have special parts inside, each with a job to do. The thin wall around the cell is called the cell membrane. This wall holds everything inside and controls what goes in and out. The cell membrane is soft and flexible, which lets the cell change shape or move if it needs to. Inside the cell, there is a jelly-like fluid. In this fluid are all the tiny parts the cell needs to live. Some of these parts are like little machines. One part breaks down food to give energy. Another part helps the cell get rid of waste. Some parts hold onto water or store food for later. Every part of the cell must work together or the cell will not survive. There is something very important inside each cell. It is called the nucleus. Not every cell has a clear nucleus, but in more complex cells, the nucleus is easy to see. The nucleus is like the cell's control center. It holds the instructions or the plan for how the cell will work, live, and make more cells. These instructions are written in DNA, which is a special kind of molecule. DNA tells the cell how to make all the parts it needs and how to copy itself. The simplest cells, like bacteria, do not have a separate nucleus. Their DNA floats freely in the cell fluid. Even so, the DNA does the same job for them, giving instructions and keeping the cell alive. More complex cells, like those in plants and animals, have a clear nucleus with DNA inside. These are called eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells can have many more small parts inside, each with their own job, making them able to do more things. Cells join together to make larger living things. In simple creatures, only a few cells work together. In animals and plants, millions or trillions of cells can join to form different tissues and organs. Each tissue is made of cells that work in a team to do a special task. For example, your skin is made of many layers of cells that protect your body. Your bones are made of hard cells that give shape and strength. Blood has cells that carry air and food to other parts of your body. Plants also have many kinds of cells. Roots, stems, leaves, and flowers are all made from different kinds of cells. Root cells help take in water from the ground. Leaf cells use sunlight to make food. Flower cells help make seeds. All these cells work together to keep the plant alive, growing, and making new seeds to start new plants. Cells make copies of themselves to keep life going. When it is time, a cell will grow bigger and then split into two new cells. Each new cell gets a full set of instructions from the parent cell. If a living thing is made from just one cell, it makes a copy by dividing in two. For living things made from many cells, some cells keep dividing so the body can grow, heal, and replace old or damaged cells. Life is always busy inside every cell. Even when you are sitting still, your cells are working. They use energy, build new parts, get rid of waste, and read the DNA instructions to know what to do next. Cells are always taking in food and water from outside. They use these things to keep themselves strong and healthy. The way cells work together in a living thing is very special. In plants, some cells move water from roots up to the leaves. In animals, some cells help move food through the body. In people, nerve cells carry messages from one part of the body to another. Every cell has its own job, but no cell can live alone in a big, living thing. They must help each other. Cells need food and energy to live. Plants get food by using sunlight in a process called photosynthesis. Tiny parts inside the plant cell catch light from the sun and use it to turn water and air into food. This makes sugar, which the plant uses for energy and for building its body. Animals cannot make food from sunlight. Instead, their cells get food by breaking down what the animal eats. The food gives cells the energy and materials needed to work and grow. Waste is also made inside cells. If the waste is not removed, the cell will become sick or die. Some parts of the cell collect waste and send it outside the cell where it can be safely removed. Other parts help take in new food and water. This is why all living things must eat or take in food and get rid of waste. Cells come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are round, some are long, and some are flat. The shape of a cell helps it do its job better. For example, nerve cells are long so they can carry messages far in the body. Blood cells are round and small so they can move easily through tiny tubes. Plant leaf cells are flat so they can capture more sunlight. Inside the cells of all living things, instructions are passed down from parents to children. This is how all living things stay the same over time, but can also make small changes. Sometimes, when a cell makes a copy of itself, the DNA instructions may get a tiny change. If this change helps the cell or the whole living thing, it might be passed on to new cells. Over many generations, small changes can add up, letting living things adapt to new places or ways of living. Living things can be made from just one cell, called unicellular, or from many cells, called multicellular. Bacteria, yeast, and some types of algae are unicellular. Each does everything it needs in a single cell. Plants, animals, and people are multicellular. Their bodies are made of many types of cells, each one with a special job. Working together, they build bodies that can move, think, grow, and sense the world. The body of a big animal or plant is like a city filled with millions of busy workers. Each cell is like a worker that knows its own job and checks the instructions in its DNA to know what to do. When a person grows, it is because the cells are making more of themselves. When a wound heals, it is because new cells are made to replace the old ones. Cells work together to keep everything alive and healthy. Every movement, every breath, and every thought starts with cells. Muscle cells let you move. Brain cells help you think and remember. Skin cells keep you safe from germs. Plant cells help catch sunlight and make food. The parts inside each cell are always busy, helping you live and do everything you need. Tiny hairs, called cilia or flagella, help some cells move through water. These hairs beat like tiny oars to push the cell along. Other cells use special parts to stick to things or to eat food. The way a cell is built shows what job it does and how it lives in its world. If you look at different living things under a microscope, you might be surprised how different their cells can look. Cells from an onion, from a leaf, from your skin, or from a fish can all have different shapes and sizes. But inside, they all have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, and DNA. This shows how all life is connected, even if it looks different on the outside. Cells not only build living things, but they also help them grow, heal, and stay active. Cells work together to make more complex structures. In plants, they build tall stems and wide leaves. In animals, they make strong muscles and soft skin. All these forms start from single cells dividing and changing as they follow the instructions written in their DNA. Sometimes cells can get old or damaged. When this happens, the body has ways to remove or fix them. Special cells called immune cells find and destroy sick or damaged cells. This keeps the rest of the body healthy. Plants do something similar, getting rid of old leaves or making new ones when the old ones die. Cells also talk to each other. They send small signals, like messages, to other cells. These messages tell cells when to grow, when to make more cells, or when to stop growing. If cells could not talk to each other, the body would not work right, and the living thing might get sick. The food plants and animals eat goes to every cell in their bodies. Cells get their food through the blood in animals or through sap in plants. Each cell takes in the things it needs and uses them to make energy, grow, and repair itself. Everything a living thing does happens because its cells are working correctly. Cells are the smallest part of a living thing that can do all the jobs needed for life. Cells can eat, breathe, grow, move, and make more cells. This makes them different from things that are not alive, like rocks or water. Without cells, there could be no life. Every living thing is made from one or more cells. From the smallest single-celled microbe to the biggest tree or animal, cells are the basic building blocks of life. As life grew more complex, cells learned to work together in larger groups. These groups made tissues, and tissues formed organs. Each organ does an important job, like pumping blood or making food. Organs work together to keep the whole plant or animal healthy and active. Knowing about cells helps us understand how bodies work, why we need food and water, and how living things stay healthy. It shows how every living thing is connected, starting from single cells and growing into all the forms of life we see. Cells hold the instructions for life, and these instructions are passed down from one generation to the next. This keeps life going, helping every new living thing know how to live, grow, and make more life. Inside the smallest microbe, the biggest tree, or a person's body, the story of life continues in every cell, every day. Cells are always working, always active, and always using the instructions in their DNA to keep life moving forward. Every living thing is made possible by the work of cells, from the greatest animals to the tiniest forms of life on our planet. Deep inside every cell, there is something very important that allows life to happen and to continue. This very important part is called DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is not something you can see by looking at a cell with your eyes. It is very, very small, but DNA holds all the instructions that tell each cell what to do. Every living thing, no matter how small or big, has DNA inside its cells. DNA is found in all plants, all animals, all people, all fungi, and even in the smallest microbes. The DNA inside a cell is like a long, twisting ladder. This ladder is so thin and so long that it is packed tightly inside the cell, often in a special place called the nucleus. Even cells that do not have a nucleus still have DNA, but it floats inside the cell. If you could take the DNA from just one of your cells and stretch it out, it could be almost 2 meters long. But this long thread is packed so tightly that it fits inside something much smaller than a speck of dust. DNA is made of 4 small chemical parts. These are called bases. Scientists named them adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. These names can sound difficult, but you can think of them as 4 kinds of building blocks. In DNA, these blocks are put together in a long line, one after another. The order of these blocks is important. It acts as a code, giving instructions to make and run a living thing. This code, written in the blocks of DNA, is read by the cell. When the cell reads the DNA code, it learns how to make all the parts it needs to live, grow, heal, and make new cells. DNA tells the cell what kind of protein to make, how to build new parts, and how to use food and energy. Each cell in your body reads the same DNA and uses its instructions. Some cells use only a small part of the DNA for their special jobs. Every living thing has DNA, but the code inside the DNA is a little bit different for each living thing. This is why a tree is different from a person, or why a cat is not the same as a dog. It is also why every person, every animal, and every plant look and grow in their own way. Even though living things are very different from each other, all DNA is made of the same 4 bases. This is true for plants, animals, fungi, and bacteria. This is very important because it shows all life on Earth is connected. The first living things that appeared on Earth had DNA or something like DNA. Over billions of years, this DNA has been passed from parent to child, from one generation to the next. Sometimes small changes in DNA happen, and this is how new kinds of living things can appear over a long time. When cells make new cells, they must also make a copy of their DNA. The cell carefully reads the code and builds a new copy, so both new cells have the same instructions. Sometimes, a small mistake happens during this copying. Most of the time, the mistake is fixed or does not matter. But sometimes the mistake brings a small change that lets the new cell work a little differently. Over many generations, these small changes can add up. This is one of the ways life changes and adapts to new places and situations. DNA is like a recipe book with thousands of pages. Each page tells the cell how to make a different part or how to do a different job. The cell's machines read the pages of the DNA and use the instructions to build the proteins that make up your body, control your energy, help you heal, and do many other things. These proteins are what make you grow, give you your eye color, help you think, and even keep you healthy. All plants and animals have DNA in almost every cell of their bodies. When a plant makes a seed or when an animal makes a baby, DNA from the parents is given to the child. This is why children look like their parents or have traits from their families. The DNA carries information about your hair color, height, eye color, face shape, and much more. DNA is passed down not only in people and animals, but also in plants. When a flower makes seeds, it passes along DNA to the next plant. This is why the seeds of an apple tree grow into new apple trees and not into something else. The same is true for every plant, every animal, and every living thing. Sometimes tiny mistakes in DNA can be very important. If a change in DNA helps a living thing survive better in a certain place, that living thing may have more babies, and the new DNA will become more common over time. This is a part of how living things adapt to new conditions, like different temperatures, foods, or places to live. DNA also helps scientists understand how living things are related. By looking at the DNA of different animals and plants, they can see which kinds are more closely related. The more similar two DNA codes are, the closer those living things are to each other. For example, people and chimpanzees have DNA that is very close to being the same. Trees and small plants have DNA that is also very similar. This connection shows that all living things came from the same beginning and all share one big family tree. The DNA in your body is not only in your blood or your skin, it is in every cell, from your hair to your toes, from your eyes to your bones. Every cell in your body, except a few special ones, carries the same DNA. When you get a cut on your hand, new cells grow and make more skin using the instructions from DNA. When a broken bone heals, it does this with the help of DNA. Some living things have more DNA than others. For example, some plants have much more DNA in their cells than people do. But having more DNA does not always mean a living thing is more complex. It just means the instructions are written in different ways. What matters is the code and how cells use it to build bodies and keep them alive. When scientists study DNA, they can learn about the past. They can see how living things have changed over millions and millions of years. Fossils show scientists the bones and shapes of ancient animals, but DNA shows how life is connected inside, from very simple things up to the most complex. This study of DNA helps us understand the story of life on Earth. In some cases, DNA changes in ways that make living things sick. Some diseases are caused by tiny mistakes or mutations in DNA. These mistakes can happen naturally or be caused by things in the environment like chemicals or too much sunlight. But most of the time, DNA works very well, keeping living things healthy and able to make more living things. Every living thing uses DNA in the same way. When a cell is ready to divide and make a new cell, it must copy its DNA. Special molecules in the cell help with this job. The DNA splits into two parts, and new blocks are added to make two new sets of DNA. Each new cell gets its own complete copy of the DNA instructions. DNA is not just for living today, but is also important for life in the future. Plants and animals pass down their DNA to their children, and those children pass it to their children. This keeps the story of life going. If DNA instructions were lost, life would not continue in the same way. Every living thing adds its own small changes to the story, making life on Earth more rich and full of different kinds. The study of DNA has helped people do many things. By reading the DNA of plants, farmers can find the best crops. Doctors can use DNA to help people who are sick. Scientists can use DNA to learn about animals and how to keep them safe. People have learned to use DNA to help fix mistakes in living things, or even to understand how people are connected in families. You can think of DNA as a long, twisted ladder. Each step on the ladder is made from two bases that match together. The four bases always join in a certain way. Adenine matches with thymine, and cytosine matches with guanine. This matching helps the cell make sure new copies are the same as the old one. Sometimes small parts of DNA get switched, added, or removed during copying. Most of the time, the cell fixes these changes, but sometimes the change stays and it is passed to new living things. Over a very long time, these changes are what let life become different, new, and able to live in many places. The code in DNA is very long. Humans have billions of bases in their DNA, but a tiny bacterium can have just a few million. The way DNA is used is what matters most. These instructions are turned into proteins, which are the tools and building blocks of every living thing. Each protein has its own shape and job. Some proteins help your muscles move, some help your eyes see, and others help fight sickness. DNA does more than just give instructions for building bodies. It also controls how living things grow and change. In a tree, DNA tells when to make flowers or when to drop leaves. In animals, DNA helps control growing from a baby to an adult and which colors or shapes a body will have. Not all DNA is used at the same time. In one cell, only some parts of the DNA will be read and used to build proteins. This is why your skin cells are different from your eye cells or your heart cells, even though they all have the same DNA. Each cell type uses the part of the DNA it needs for its work. DNA connects all living things together. Even a small flower shares some of the same DNA code with a mushroom or a whale. This is strong proof that life started in the same way for everyone and then changed over many millions and millions of years to become all the kinds of living things seen now. The secret of DNA was discovered less than 100 years ago. Since then, scientists have learned more and more about how DNA works. DNA is at the center of everything in biology. It helps explain how living things are born, grow, change, get sick, and even how they age and die. Every time an animal is born or a plant grows from a seed, the next generation carries the story of DNA within them. DNA keeps going through time, passing on what works and changing when it needs to. Through DNA, living things are always linked to their past and their future. Some scientists are working to use what they know about DNA to help living things. They are finding ways to help plants grow faster or resist sickness. Some use DNA knowledge to help protect animals in danger. DNA has made it possible to solve mysteries about the past, such as where people came from or how ancient animals lived. It is also true that every living thing carries tiny mistakes in their DNA. These mistakes are part of how life changes. Some do nothing, some cause problems, but some make it possible for living things to live in hard places or find new types of food. All these details about DNA show how important it is for life. Without DNA, there would be no instructions for cells. Living things could not grow, heal, or make more living things like themselves. DNA is what keeps life going, making sure that cells know what to do every moment. By looking at the DNA of every living thing, you can see a single story of life. Plants, animals, fungi, and bacteria all use the same kind of DNA. This shows that all of them, no matter how different they look, are part of one long, continued story. DNA brings all living things together, making life possible every day. Just as every plant or animal uses water and energy, every living thing depends on the DNA in its cells to live and grow. It is DNA that helps living things survive in many places, and it is DNA that helps them make the next generation that will continue life on Earth. DNA is the code for life, and every part of the world that is alive has this code inside its cells, keeping the story of life moving forward and growing richer each day. Every living thing is able to stay alive because it has what it needs around it. Cells have instructions inside them, and these instructions help the cell use or look for important things like water, food, and energy. Without these important things, life would not continue. All plants, all animals, all fungi, all bacteria, and all other living things need certain things to survive and grow. These things are needed every day, every year, and through each step of every living thing's life. Water is one of the most important needs for life. Life on Earth began in water, and every living thing today still needs water. Water is always moving in and out of living things. Plants draw water up through their roots. Animals drink water or get it from their food. Even tiny cells take in water from what is around them. Water fills every cell and lets the tiny parts inside the cell move, mix, and work together. Inside a cell, water helps all the jobs happen. Substances can dissolve in water, which means they can mix with water and move through the cell. Food and minerals can be carried to every part of the cell because of water. Waste products can be taken away. Without water, the inside of a cell would dry up and the cell would stop working. If a living thing cannot get water, it will get weaker and can die. Water is very special because it is good at carrying other things. Minerals, salts, and many chemicals can travel in water. This helps living things get everything they need. For example, a tree takes water from the ground and carries it all the way up to its leaves. As water moves, it brings with it the minerals and nutrients that the tree needs to grow. Animals, including people, have blood, which is mostly water. Blood moves food and air all around the body, helping every cell get what it needs. Another thing that every living thing needs is energy. Energy is needed to move, to grow, to heal, to think, and to do anything at all. Most of the energy for life on Earth comes from the sun. The sun sends out light and warmth. Plants catch sunlight with their leaves. Then, using water from the ground and a gas called carbon dioxide from the air, plants make their own food in a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is very important because it makes food and gives off a gas called oxygen. Plants use sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, and they turn it into sugar, which is their food. At the same time, they release oxygen into the air. Every living thing that breathes oxygen depends on plants. Animals, including people, eat plants or eat other animals that ate plants. This means the energy from the sun moves through plants to animals and other living things. Some tiny living things, like bacteria, can get their energy in other ways. Some bacteria live deep under the ground or at the bottom of the sea. They get energy from chemicals in the rocks or from the hot water near undersea volcanoes. These places do not get sunlight, but life can still exist if it finds another way to get energy. Living things need more than just water and energy. All life is made of a few main types of atoms. These atoms are called elements. The most important for life are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Other needed elements are phosphorus, sulfur, calcium, potassium, sodium, and a few more. Every cell is built from these elements. Carbon is very important because it can join to other atoms in many ways. It helps make the chains and rings that build all the parts of a cell. Hydrogen and oxygen are both found in water, and they are also found in the many other molecules that make up cells. Nitrogen is needed to build DNA and proteins which help cells grow and work. Plants take in carbon dioxide from the air and water and minerals from the ground. Animals eat plants or other animals, taking in the materials their bodies need. Fungi and bacteria help break down dead things, turning them into the simple forms that plants can use again. This cycle of taking in, using, and giving back the main elements keeps life going in every part of the world. To get what they need, living things have special parts or ways to find or collect these important things. Roots in plants grow into soil, searching for water and minerals. Leaves are wide and flat, made to catch as much sunlight as possible. Animals have mouths, stomachs, and intestines to take in food and water. Some animals can even store water or food in their bodies for times when it is hard to find these things. Air is important for many living things. Air has many gases, but two are needed by most life: oxygen and carbon dioxide. Animals and people breathe in air to get oxygen. Without oxygen, the cells in their bodies cannot use food for energy. When living things use oxygen, they breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants do the opposite. They take in carbon dioxide and let out oxygen. This balance between plants and animals helps keep air good for everyone. Temperature is another thing all living things must watch. Each plant, animal, or microbe can only live in a certain range of temperatures. If it gets too hot or too cold, the cells cannot work well. Some living things are able to live in very hot places or very cold places, but most need a gentle, steady temperature. Bodies have ways to keep their temperature just right. People sweat to cool down and shiver to warm up. Some animals have fur or feathers to keep warm. Plants grow best in certain kinds of weather. The place where a living thing lives is called its environment. The environment gives everything the living thing needs. A fish lives in water because it needs water and gets its oxygen from the water. A tree lives in soil because its roots get water and minerals there, and its leaves reach sunlight. A mushroom grows in dark, damp places with lots of dead leaves to eat. Every kind of living thing has its own environment. Sometimes living things must share their environment with others. Many plants and animals live together and depend on one another. A forest is filled with trees, smaller plants, insects, birds, and many other animals. Each living thing has its own way of getting water, energy, and what it needs to live. Sometimes, animals help plants by carrying pollen or spreading seeds. Some animals eat plants, and some plants use animals to help them grow and spread. When living things cannot find enough of what they need, they must move to a new place, change in some way, or they may not survive. Some animals move to new places to look for food or water. Birds fly south when it gets cold. and some fish swim to new waters when seasons change. Plants do not move, but their seeds can travel on the wind, in water, or by sticking to animals. If a seed lands in a good place, it can grow where conditions are right. Animals need food that gives them the right kinds of energy and materials. Some eat only plants, some eat only other animals, and some eat both. Food gives energy and also the elements for building and repairing the body. When animals eat, their bodies break the food down into small parts, which cells use to grow and heal. Plants make their food from sunlight, water, and air, but they still need minerals from the ground. If the soil does not have good minerals, plants cannot grow well. Farmers add minerals to soil to help plants grow strong and healthy. Without these minerals, plants may be small, weak, or not able to make seeds. Sunlight is important for almost all life. Plants use light to make food. Animals depend on the food that plants make. Even living things deep in the ocean, where the sun does not shine, need energy. Some get their energy from chemical reactions deep in the earth. Life finds a way to use any energy it can get, but almost all depends on the sun. When a living thing is growing, it needs even more water, food, and energy. Baby plants and baby animals eat or take in a lot as they grow. Growing cells are busy making new parts, so they need extra materials. A seedling pushes roots into the ground for water and sends leaves into the air for light. Young animals eat more food so they can get bigger and stronger. When a plant or animal is sick or hurt, it may need even more of these things. Food and water help heal wounds and fight sickness. Energy is needed for the body to fix itself. Often living things rest when they are sick or hurt, so their bodies can use energy for healing. Some places in the world are harder places to live. The desert is dry and hot with little water. Only special plants and animals can live there, and they have special ways to save water and find food. In the cold, icy parts of the earth, only a few living things can survive. They have thick fur, special fat, or strong bodies to stay warm and find food. Each living thing finds its way to get what it needs, no matter where it lives. There are living things in places people once thought were empty. There are tiny microbes living inside rocks, inside hot springs, at the bottom of the ocean, and even high in the air. These microbes have found ways to stay alive with little water, strange chemicals, or very hot and very cold temperatures. This shows how powerful life is and how it can adapt to many different places. The world is always changing. Sometimes water dries up, sunlight is blocked, or minerals in the soil change. Living things must be able to handle these changes. Some plants store water in thick leaves or roots for dry times. Animals may save fat, sleep for long times without eating, or move to new places. Some microbes can stop growing until good conditions return. Every living thing is part of a web. Plants use sunlight and give oxygen. Animals eat plants and breathe oxygen. When plants and animals die, bacteria and fungi break them down, and the simple parts return to the soil, water, and air. These simple parts are then used again for new life. This movement of water, energy, and materials between living and non-living things keeps the whole world in balance. To stay alive, living things must keep just the right amount of water, food, minerals, and energy in their bodies. Too much or too little can be harmful. Bodies have ways to stay in balance. If you drink too much water, your body removes the extra. If you get too hot, you sweat to cool down. If a plant gets too much sunlight, its leaves may turn away from the sun or get smaller. All the needs of life are part of nature. Life depends on these things every day. Water keeps cells alive and moving. Energy lets living things grow, move, and heal. The right elements build and repair bodies. Air gives gases for breathing and making food. Sunlight gives warmth and energy for life's processes. People have learned ways to help living things get what they need. They water plants during dry times, feed animals on farms, protect wild places, and clean dirty water. Understanding what life needs helps people take care of the world, so all living things can survive and thrive. A world full of life needs balance. If too much is taken from nature, living things may not have enough to survive. If water is wasted, if air or soil becomes dirty, or if too many trees are cut down, life can be harmed. Protecting the needs of life keeps the world healthy for plants, animals, people, and all living things. When a baby animal is born or a plant seed sprouts, it finds what it needs from its world. It takes in food, drinks water, uses energy, and grows. This has happened for millions and millions of years. All life depends on these things. The smallest bacteria and the largest animal must have water, energy, and the right elements. Knowing what living things need to survive helps everyone understand life. It shows how everything is connected, how plants and animals help each other, and why taking care of nature is important. The needs of life are simple but must be met every day for every living thing in every part of the world. The story of life continues because every living thing meets these needs in its own way. Some live in salt water, some in fresh water, some on land, others in the air. In each place, life finds water, energy, and the elements it needs. This ability to find and use what is needed is what keeps the world full of living things, always active, always growing, and always connected by the same needs everywhere. Life keeps moving forward because all living things find what they need to survive. But how did life actually begin? This question is one of the biggest questions for science. For many, many years, people have wondered how the first living things appeared. Why did life start on Earth, and how did simple things become something that could grow, move, and make more life? No person was there in the very beginning. The earliest days of Earth happened a long time ago, about 3,800,000,000 years in the past. The planet was very young. There were no people, no plants, no fish, and no birds. The ground was rocky and hot, the air was thick, and it rained a lot. There were many volcanoes. The oceans were very different from what they are today. Scientists ask themselves how life could have started. They look for answers by studying rocks, water, and the oldest signs of life they can find. They also make experiments, trying to see if simple things can change into things that look alive. One important idea is that life started from very small parts, called molecules. In the early oceans, these molecules came together. Some of them joined in new ways because of energy from things like sunlight, lightning, and heat from deep inside the Earth. Nobody knows the exact way this happened. What scientists do know is that molecules needed to join together in a special way. They needed to make things that could copy themselves. Copying is important for life because it lets living things make more living things. Scientists believe that over time, enough new pieces joined so that the first tiny cell could form. That first cell was able to use energy, make new copies, take in what it needed, and keep its important instructions safe inside. Getting from simple molecules to a living cell was not quick. It took millions and millions of years. Many things could join together, but only some groups worked in the right way. The right groups could hold water inside, react to things around them, take in energy, and make copies. Over time, the ones that could copy themselves best made more of their kind. How could pieces join in the right way? Earth's early oceans were like a soup made of different chemicals. Some molecules stuck together, some formed rings or chains, others joined to make small bags with walls. Inside these bags, reactions happened. These bags held the molecules inside, safe from the outside water. Energy was very important for these first steps. Sunlight, heat from volcanoes, or lightning could give the power important to start new reactions. Over many years, some parts learned to take in energy and keep it. Some learned to use this energy to join other pieces or to make new copies. Scientists are still learning about this process. They have made special experiments where they mix the same chemicals that were found on early Earth. Sometimes, after many days, they can see new molecules form, even some that are found in living things today. But making a real living cell from just chemicals is still not possible in a lab. This part is still a mystery. Some people think that maybe the first important pieces for life did not form on Earth. Maybe they came from space on small rocks called meteorites. Scientists have found some special molecules inside meteorites. These are some of the same molecules that living things use. It is possible that these tiny pieces fell to Earth and helped life begin. Even after the first cell appeared, life was very simple for a long, long time. The first life forms were tiny cells, smaller than a speck of dust. They lived in water, took in energy, made new copies, and protected their important parts. These simple cells were bacteria and other small microbes. For millions and millions of years, only these tiny living things were on Earth. They changed very slowly, but every time a new cell divided, a little change might happen. One of the biggest changes in early life was learning to use energy from the sun. Some cells developed a way to catch sunlight and use it to make food out of water and carbon dioxide. This process is called photosynthesis. As these cells made food, they also began to release a gas called oxygen into the water and the air. Over a huge amount of time, oxygen filled the atmosphere. The world was changed by this. With more oxygen, new forms of life became possible, and old forms adapted or disappeared. Even today, photosynthesis is very important. Plants, algae, and some bacteria use sunlight to make food. All animals need oxygen from the air or water to breathe. If early cells had not learned to use sunlight, life today would not be possible in the way we know it. But even with these big steps, the question, how did life start, is not completely answered. Every year, scientists work in their labs to look for new answers. They heat chemicals, add water or different gases, and try electricity or ultraviolet light. They check if lifelike things form. Sometimes more complex molecules appear. These molecules can fold into shapes, make more of themselves, or do little jobs like breaking down other chemicals. The real beginning of life is hard to study because everything happened so long ago. The first cells left almost no fossils. Fossils form from hard things like bones or shells, and these first cells had soft, tiny walls. But sometimes scientists find very old rocks with thin, dark marks or layers. When these are studied, the marks look like they were made by tiny living things. Some of these rocks are over 3 billion years old. There is still debate among scientists about where on Earth life began. Some say life started in warm, shallow pools near volcanoes. These places had heat, water, and lots of chemicals. Others believe life began deep under the sea, near hot vents where water comes out of the ground. These vents are full of minerals and can give living things energy. Some scientists even wonder if life began in ice, where small holes between ice crystals kept the pieces close together. Every answer that science finds brings new questions. Scientists sometimes imagine what would happen if they could go back in time and watch the first cells form. Would they see simple balls of chemicals? Would there be slow, dancing shapes in the water? Would the first cells be more like simple bags? Or would they have many working parts already inside them? The way living cells are built today gives some clues. All living things use the same kinds of molecules. They all use DNA or a close cousin named RNA to carry instructions. They all have walls that are made from a few main types of molecules. They all need water, energy, and the main elements like carbon and hydrogen. By studying the way living things work, scientists hope to understand more about the steps needed for life. Sometimes, new ideas and new machines help scientists see things they could not see before. Even though we do not yet know exactly how life began, each discovery helps people learn more about our own beginnings. Some scientists are also looking outside Earth for clues about how life starts. They use special machines to look for water, chemicals, or gas on other planets and moons. Mars has dry land and signs that water was once there. Some icy moons, like Europa around Jupiter or Enceladus around Saturn, have thick ice on the surface and seem to have water under the ice. If scientists find even very small signs of life on these places, it would mean that life can start in many places, not just on Earth. Finding life somewhere else would be a big discovery. It would show that life is not only a thing of Earth, but a part of nature everywhere. Even if all life out there is small and simple, the facts would help explain more about how life here began. There are also questions about how often life can begin. Was it a rare event that happened only once on Earth, or is it something that can happen many times if the right pieces are there? The search for life far from Earth may help answer these questions. Even today, new forms of very simple life appear in places people thought were empty. On the deep sea floor, near hot or cold water, inside rocks, or in salty acid waters, tiny living things are found. Some were only discovered in the last few years. This shows that life is able to begin and survive in many places. When people look at all these clues, it makes them ask even more questions. Why is DNA almost the same in all living things? How did the instructions for life come together and start to work? How did the first cells keep their parts safe and make copies? Did all life come from one first cell, or did more than one kind begin and only one survived? These questions keep science moving and people interested. The mystery of how life started is part of what makes science exciting. It makes many people curious. It makes some people want to spend their lives looking at small things under a microscope, or mixing chemicals in labs, or building machines to send far into space. Even though there is no final answer yet, every small finding teaches something about life. The story of how life started is not just about Earth long ago. It is also about what can still happen now, and maybe what could happen another time in another place. The Earth keeps changing, and so does life. The study of life's beginnings shows that simple things can grow into wonderful living forms if the right conditions are there. All living things today show proofs of how life began because they still need water, energy, and the right elements. They still copy themselves by splitting or by making babies. They still use DNA or RNA to carry plans for building new life. These things connect us to the very first cells, billions of years ago. When you see a plant growing, or a fish swimming, or a person walking, you do not see the beginning of life, but deep inside each cell, every living thing carries the same bits that started it all. The codes, the small machines, and the ways cells work all remind us that life started from simple beginnings and grew step by step. Mystery is part of nature. Not all questions have answers yet. That is what makes the search for the beginning of life so important. Even as scientists keep looking for new signs and try new ideas, they learn more about how living things change, grow, and keep going. The mystery also helps people respect all life because every living thing is a part of something old and very special. People write, talk, and make pictures about what the first living things were like. Some draw them in books, some make stories, and some build models from what they know. Every new discovery changes these ideas. Some think the first living thing was very small, with just a few important pieces. Others think it was already a little complex, able to live in changing water, eat different things, and keep safe. Even after all these years of learning and searching, people do not know every answer. Life's beginnings are hidden in the rock, water, and air of the past. But day by day, scientists find new hints. They teach others, write about their work, and share what they discover. Each fact fills a small piece of the big puzzle of life's origin. Looking for the answers helps people understand not just the past, but the world as it is today. It helps everyone see the importance of water, energy, the right mix of chemicals, and the connections between all living things. It also teaches that each living thing is special because it carries a little bit of the story of life's beginning inside. As people keep searching, more clues will appear. More experiments will show how small things can join, copy, and grow into something alive. Maybe one day a scientist will discover exactly how the first living thing was made. Until then, the search for the answer continues. In every cell, every plant, every animal, and every person, the story lives on, tying the whole world together through time, through change, and through hope for new discoveries. Discovery is not only about the beginning of life, but also about how life continues and spreads to every part of our world. After the first living cells appeared, they did not just stay in one place. Slowly, living things began to move from where they started. Even the smallest cells looked for new spaces, found new ways to live, and filled the earth with different forms of life. The story of life is a story of spreading and surviving in many types of places. On Earth, life can be found almost everywhere. You can find living things in deep oceans where no light from the sun reaches. You can find living things on high mountains where the air is thin and cold. Some forms of life survive in the hottest deserts where there is almost no water. Others live in frozen ice or at the bottom of deep lakes. Living things can even be found in very salty water, very acidic water, or under rocks deep below the ground. These places are very different from each other, but living things have found special ways to stay alive in each place. The way living things spread to many different places is called adaptation. Adaptation means a living thing changes in small ways over many generations. These changes help it survive better in its home. When life started, most living things needed water all around them. Little by little, some learned to deal with less water, or with air, or with different kinds of food. These small changes made it possible for life to fill oceans, rivers, lakes, forests, deserts, and even the air. Moving to new places often means facing new problems. Sometimes it is too dry, too salty, too cold, or too hot. Sometimes there is not enough sunlight or food. Over time, living things that could handle these new problems survived and had new babies with the same helpful traits. This is why you see so many kinds of plants and animals. Each one has traits that help it succeed in its own place. Some bacteria live deep under the Earth's surface where there is no light and where the water is very hot or filled with chemicals. These tiny living things have simple bodies, but they can survive where nothing else can. In salty places like salt lakes or the oceans, some bacteria have special parts inside that keep them safe from drying out. In very cold places like Antarctica, microbes live inside ice. They do not freeze easily and can use very small amounts of food and energy. Plants have also found ways to live in new places. In the desert, some plants save water inside their stems. They grow thick skins to stop water from leaving their bodies. Their roots look for water far down in the ground. In wet places, some plants float on the water. Some have roots that hold on to rocks in fast rivers. In very cold places, plants are small and grow close to the ground, keeping away from the cold wind. Animals must also find ways to survive in many places. In hot places, animals rest during the day and look for food when it is cooler. Some animals live in dry lands with little water by eating plants that hold water inside. In cold places, animals grow thick fur or hide in the ground to keep warm. Birds fly to warmer places during winter, and fish swim to deeper water when it is too hot or too cold near the surface. Forests are full of life because many different plants, animals, and other living things have found ways to share the space. Trees grow tall to catch sunlight. Smaller plants grow in the shade. Birds live in the tops of trees. Animals live on the ground, and insects are everywhere, even under leaves or inside old wood. Every space is used by something living. Deserts may look empty, but many living things are hiding. Some animals live under rocks or sand to stay cool. Plants grow slowly and store water. Fungi and bacteria break down dead things, returning simple parts to the soil. In the water, life is everywhere. Oceans are home to many small forms of life, like plankton, which float near the surface. Fish, crabs, jellyfish, and many other animals live in different ocean zones. Deep in the water where there is no light, some creatures make their own light to see or attract food. Living things near deep sea vents use energy from hot chemicals, not from the sun. Freshwater lakes and rivers have plants that float or grow underwater. Small animals like insects and snails, as well as fish and frogs. Every living thing in water must deal with moving currents, changes in temperature, and the amount of oxygen in the water. Some living things move from place to place as they grow. Trees drop their seeds far from the main tree, sometimes carried by wind or water, sometimes carried by animals. Many seeds have coats that let them float on water or stick to animal fur. Animal babies often move away to find their own space. Birds travel very long distances every year. They fly from cold places to warm places, looking for food and a good home to raise babies. In the ocean, some fish swim thousands of kilometers every year to lay eggs. Even the tiniest forms of life, like bacteria and viruses, can spread in the air, on water, and on things that move. These tiny forms of life are everywhere and can live in many places, sometimes in places with no light, very little food, or where no human can survive. Some living things can survive for long times without everything they need. Certain bacteria can dry out and wait as a tiny, hard ball until water is found again. Some plants drop seeds that only start growing when it is the right time. Some animals fall asleep for months during dry or cold times. All these ways of living are only possible because every living thing can adapt. Adaptation happens through small changes that help a living thing in its home. These changes are passed from parents to children. Over many thousands or millions of years, these helpful changes make new types of plants, animals, or microbes. Life spreading everywhere also means that living things sometimes must compete. Plants grow close together, trying to catch sunlight. Animals look for food and water. Sometimes one living thing keeps another out, or they share in a way that helps both. In some places, plants or animals help each other. A bird may eat insects that hurt a tree, or a small animal may carry seeds to a new spot, helping the plant spread. Sometimes life changes quickly. When something new arrives in a place, it can change the balance. When people move animals or plants from one place to another, the new living thing may do better than the ones already there. Sometimes that makes trouble for the old plants or animals. This is why balance in nature is important. Life on islands is very special. Islands are cut off by water, so only some plants and animals get there. Over many generations, new kinds of living things can appear that are not found anywhere else. For example, Some birds or animals on one island may look very different from their family in other parts of the world. This happens because they are living in a different environment and must find their own way to survive. In very high places, like mountains, there can be wind, cold, and thin air. Living things there must handle less air for breathing and colder weather. Some animals grow more fur, and some plants grow low to the ground. Some insects have bodies that work even when the air has less oxygen. In cities and towns, people have changed the land, water, and air. Even with these changes, many kinds of life have found ways to live. Birds build nests on buildings. Insects find places in parks and gardens. Small animals use holes, pipes, or dark spaces to make their homes. Every living thing is always moving, growing, or spreading in some way. Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes very slowly. Seeds travel, babies are born, and new homes are found. The slow process of moving and adapting means that in every part of the world you can find life. Even the air you breathe and the soil you touch are full of small living things. The different ways living things spread out have helped fill every part of Earth. Some animals run, crawl, climb, swim, or fly. Plants send out seeds or grow new parts that start growing nearby. Tiny bacteria move by swimming, by the wind, or by getting on bigger animals or people. Fungi grow by sending out tiny bits called spores, which float through the air until they find a good place. When life spreads to a new place, the first living things there must find what they need. If they cannot, they will not survive. Only those that can change, or that have the right parts, will stay. Then, over time, new plants, animals, or microbes will appear, each one a little different, a little better able to live there. Sometimes life must survive hard changes. The Earth has changed many times with hot times, cold times, volcanoes, floods, and ice ages. Many living things disappeared, but others found ways to live through the changes. Some plants made harder seeds, some animals hid underground or changed what they ate. After the hard times, life spread out again, filling empty places. How life fills the Earth is not always about moving to new land or water. Sometimes it happens because a living thing learns a new way to find food or to deal with sickness, dryness, or cold. Every change helps life survive in a world that is always changing. Living things do not just live alone, they affect each other's lives. Bees carry pollen from flower to flower, helping plants make seeds. Trees give shade, which lets other plants grow. Fish clean the water for other fish. Sometimes one living thing depends on another for food, safety, or shelter. This web of life means that all living things are connected in some way. All these connections between living things are important for the balance of life. If one part is lost, it can affect many others. For example, if one kind of plant disappears, the animals that eat it may have trouble. If an animal leaves, the plants it helped may not spread as easily. That is why taking care of every kind of living thing is important. The loss of even one part can change everything. Humans are part of this story of life, spreading and surviving. People have changed many places by farming, building, and traveling. They have also brought new plants and animals to places far from where they started. Sometimes this helps, but sometimes it makes it hard for other living things to survive. People can also help life by protecting places, planting trees, or cleaning up water. The spread of life also means that the Earth is always full of change. New living things appear, old ones disappear. In each place, life is always adapting, growing, and sometimes moving away. The world is not still. Every day, living things move, grow, and find new homes. By looking at all the many places life fills, you can see the strength and power of living things. The smallest microbe and the biggest tree both find their own way to survive. No matter how hard or strange the place, life tries to find a way. From the deep ocean to the highest mountain, from the hottest desert to the coldest ice, Life is everywhere, always searching, always growing. Understanding how living things adapt and spread helps people know why there are so many kinds of life. It also helps show how important it is to keep the earth healthy. The more we learn about the ways life survives in each place, the better we can protect every living thing and help life continue moving forward, wherever it may go. Every living thing on Earth is connected, no matter where it lives or what it looks like. You may see a big tree, a small flower, a fish swimming in the water, or a bird flying in the sky, but each one shares something deep inside. This shared thing is the code for life, which is called DNA. Even living things that cannot be seen, like bacteria and fungi, have DNA too. This code is found in every cell. The more scientists learn about living things, the more they discover how everything alive is linked together. When you look at different living things, you may think they are not alike because they look so different. A mushroom, a dog, a person, and a tree do not appear to be the same. But if you could look inside their cells, you would see they all use similar ways to live, grow, and make new life. They all need water, use energy, respond to their surroundings, make more of themselves, and follow instructions from DNA. These shared signs show that everything that lives comes from the same beginning long ago. Scientists study DNA to learn about how living things are related. When they look at the DNA of different animals or plants, they find some parts are almost the same and other parts are a little different. If two animals have almost the same DNA, they are closely related. If their DNA is more different, they are not as close in their family tree. This is how scientists know that all birds are related, even if some are big and some are small. They can also learn that people and monkeys are part of the same bigger family as other animals, and that all plants are linked to each other. The longer ago two living things had a common ancestor, the more their DNA changes. Over millions of years, small changes are made in the DNA each time a new life form is born. Some changes are passed on if they help the living thing survive. Others may not matter or may slowly disappear. By studying these changes, scientists can build family trees for all living things. These family trees show which plants, animals, and other life forms have the most in common and share the same start. Inside cells, the DNA code is read and copied again and again. Every time a plant grows a new leaf, every time a cat has kittens, every time a seed falls to the ground and grows, DNA is at work. The new living thing always gets some DNA from the parent. Sometimes a little mistake or change happens when copying the DNA. Over time, these small new details make each living thing a little different from others. Some changes are simple, like the color of flowers or the pattern on a fish. Other changes are bigger, like the way a bird's wings work or a tree's leaves grow. Even with all these small changes, the deep connection between living things stays. All use the same kind of code. They use the same chemicals to build their bodies. Their cells work in the same basic ways, using energy, growing, responding, and making new life from the code. When scientists study these connections, they often find surprising things. A human shares some DNA with a mouse, a banana, and even a single-celled fungus. These shared pieces show the link that ties all living things together. The way living things are connected can also be seen by looking at how they depend on each other. Trees need animals to carry their seeds. Birds eat fruits and spread seeds when they fly. Worms turn old leaves into soft, healthy soil for plants to grow. Bees move pollen from flower to flower, letting many kinds of plants make seeds. In return, plants give food, shelter, and clean air for animals and people. All living things are part of this big system. People are part of this connection too. Even if people look and act very different from plants or other animals, people share the same signs of life. People need water, energy, the right chemicals, and a place to live. People are born, grow, and have children who share their DNA. Just like other living beings, people change, adapt, and pass on changes to the next generation. Knowing that all living things are connected helps people make better choices for the world. When you see that cutting down a forest hurts not just the trees, but also the birds, insects, and animals that live there, you understand why it is important to protect nature. If an animal or plant disappears forever, other living things that need it may also suffer. Everything in nature is linked, so caring for one part helps all the others stay alive. Scientists use the knowledge of connection to study medicine, farming, and the environment. When they learn how a disease moves from one animal to another or how a plant grows in different weather, they help people and nature at the same time. Farmers who understand the connection between soil, plants, insects, and water can grow more food without harming the earth. Doctors who understand human DNA can help people stay healthy. Even the smallest changes in DNA can teach us about our place in life's big family. Sometimes, a tiny part of DNA from a very old ancestor is still in people today. By looking at where DNA is similar and where it is different, scientists can trace where groups of people moved long ago or how plants and animals traveled around the world. DNA is not just a code for one living thing, it is a record of all the steps of life that came before. If you look outside at plants, animals, or just the grass and bugs in a park, you are seeing a living web. Roots hold the soil, leaves use sunlight to make food, flowers call to insects for help. Some plants make shelter for small animals. Animals drop seeds or carry pollen. Predators keep groups balanced, so no one kind grows too much. Decomposers like bacteria and fungi return dead things to soil, water, and air, so new life can use the simple elements again. When people protect this web, everything works better. When the web breaks in one place, when a river is dirty or a forest is cut, the break can hurt many kinds of living things. Even far from where a problem starts, waves of change can make life harder for someone else. This is why keeping the connection strong helps all life, even life that cannot be seen. Understanding connection also helps people see that they are not separate from nature. People need clean water, air, food, and places for animals and plants to live. Every person's actions, no matter how small, can help or hurt the whole family of living things. Choosing to plant trees, save water, or walk instead of riding in a car are ways people can help keep the world healthy. Knowing that all living things share the same deep code makes it easier to understand why even the smallest life is important. A tiny bee makes sure food grows. A small worm makes the soil rich. A cloud of plankton feeds fish in the sea. Each small part is needed for the big picture of life. Some people think about what would happen if a kind of plant or animal disappeared forever. Without its special job in nature, other living things may be lost too. That is why scientists and people everywhere work to save plants and animals, fix broken places, and keep clean water and air for the future. Sometimes people use the knowledge of connection to make new things. Farmers use friendly insects to protect plants from bugs. Gardeners use plants that clean the air. Builders use trees to protect homes from wind and heat. Knowing how living things work together lets people live better and help nature at the same time. People are still learning new ways in which life is tied together. Every year, new kinds of living things are found in forests, oceans, and even in cities. These new discoveries remind people that the story of life is not finished. Every living thing has a role, and even the smallest connection is part of what keeps the whole world healthy. When you learn about how all living things are connected, you can see your own place in the world. You can see that your life is possible because of the plants, animals, water, and air around you. You can see that helping one living thing, even in a small way, helps the whole world. The code that connects all living things also holds the story of life. By studying DNA, fossils, and the living world today, people can learn about what came before and what may happen in the future. This shows that life is not just about one kind or one time. It is about everything working together, always changing, always connected. Every time you breathe, eat, drink, or move, you are taking part in this web. You use air made by plants, food that comes from the work of many other living things, and water that has moved through many lives before yours. Your body works because many kinds of cells are working together in your tissues and organs. Your thoughts, your movement, your health, and every part of you are all connected to the work of life in other living things. Some people travel to see many kinds of living things because every place on Earth has its own connections and stories. In the ocean, small fish hide in coral reefs, which are built by tiny animals and need clean water to live. In the forest, tall trees share space with smaller plants, birds, insects, and animals, all sharing sunlight, food, and water. In the desert, plants and animals have found ways to survive with very little water, each one fitting its own place. Life's connection is not always easy to see, but it is always there. Even the parts people do not see, like tiny bacteria in the soil or plankton in the ocean, are needed for the balance of life. Changing one part can change everything else, sometimes in ways people do not expect. The connections among living things are also important for the future. When people learn how life is linked, they can help solve modern problems. Cities can be built with more plants. Farms can grow food while saving water and protecting the soil. Wild places can be protected so animals and plants can keep sharing their important jobs in nature. When you know that you are connected to everything else, you can make choices that help life. You can save water, plant trees, pick up trash, and teach others about the ways life depends on every part working together. People can share what they learn, grow food in caring ways, protect wild animals, and save forests. These small actions become big when many people join together. Learning about these connections also helps people respect all life, no matter how strange or different it looks. Each kind of plant, animal, fungus, or microbe has a value. All are part of the big living world. This respect is important because it helps people make choices for today and for the future, keeping life safe and strong. In the end, all living things share the history of life on Earth. They share the code of DNA. They share the need for water, energy, air, and a safe place to live. They share the work of growing, changing, and helping the world stay alive. By understanding these connections, everyone can see how their life is part of one big family and how caring for all living things means caring for themselves and for the world. When you begin to understand how all living things are connected, you can start to see why learning about life matters so much. Every part of what you do, where you live and how you grow is made possible because of life around you and inside you. Knowing about life helps every person see what it means to be alive, what it takes to stay alive, and how all living things work together on Earth. This understanding is important for your health, for the health of your family and friends, and even for the health of the whole planet. Learning about life helps people take care of themselves. When you know that your body is made of cells and that each cell needs water, food, air, and energy, it is easier to understand why you need to eat well, drink water, breathe clean air, and get enough rest. Every part of your body depends on cells working well together, using the energy and instructions that come from DNA. When you learn about how cells build tissues and organs, you see why healthy habits like eating fruits and vegetables, moving your body, and getting enough sleep help you grow and keep you strong. Understanding life makes it easier to see how you are like all other living things. Your body works in ways that are shared by animals and plants. Your cells need water, just like a plant's roots. Your lungs take in air, just like fish gills take oxygen from water. Your heart pumps blood, which gives food and energy to every cell, just as sap moves through a tree to feed all its leaves. Knowing this helps you care for your own body, but it also lets you care about all living things, because you know you are all connected in deep ways. When you learn about life, you learn about the ways living things help each other. Bees help flowers to make seeds and fruit. Trees give animals places to live. Animals spread seeds, helping plants to grow in new places. Mushrooms and bacteria break down old leaves and wood, making the soil rich for new plants. Every living thing has a part in helping other living things. This helps people see why it is important to protect the places where life grows, such as forests, grasslands, rivers, and lakes. Understanding life also helps people see why the balance of nature is important. When people change the world too much, cutting down too many trees, using too much water, throwing away too much plastic, or making the air dirty, it can hurt many living things, not just one or two. When one part of nature changes or is lost, it can make life harder for many other living things. For example, if one kind of flower disappears, the bees that visit it may have trouble finding food. The animals that eat the seeds from that flower may go hungry. The soil may change, and new problems can appear. Small changes can become big changes over time. By learning how living things depend on each other, people find better ways to protect life. Planting trees, cleaning rivers, growing food in caring ways, and reducing waste are all ways people help life continue. Saving animals, protecting wild lands, using less water, and not polluting the air helps nature stay healthy. When people learn about life, they make choices that are good for the world. Learning about life also helps people understand where they come from. When you look at your family, you may notice how you are like your parents, your brothers or sisters, or even grandparents. The color of your eyes, the shape of your nose, your height, and many other things are linked to your DNA. This DNA came from the people who came before you all the way back for thousands of years. The same is true for all living things. Plants get their DNA from their parent plants, animals from their parent animals. This chain links every living thing in a family through time. Learning about life and families helps people respect each other. It shows that people all over the world are part of one big human family, even if they speak different languages, have different skin colors, or live in different places. It also helps people see that all living things are part of the same living world. Respect for one another and for nature comes from knowing about these deep connections. Understanding life helps people use science and technology in smart and safe ways. Doctors use what they know about cells to treat sickness. They use DNA to understand some diseases or to help families who are sick. Scientists use what they learn about plants and animals to grow better food and to protect endangered animals and plants. People use knowledge about how the natural world works to make new medicines, new tools, and even new ways to make energy that do not harm the earth. By learning about life, people find answers to important questions. Why do plants need sunlight? Why do animals move or sleep? How do fish breathe in water? Why do some diseases spread? Why are forests or wetlands important? Each time someone looks for an answer, they add to what people know about life and the world. This knowledge is then shared with others, helping everyone to live better and safer lives. Learning about life also helps people care for their pets and gardens at home. People who know about what plants need will water them, give them good soil, and make sure they get enough light. People who have animals as friends can feed them healthy food, give them clean water, and make sure they have safe shelter. Understanding the needs of these living things helps them grow and stay happy. In schools, children learn about life to help them understand the world around them. They study plants, animals, the human body, and how everything in nature works together. They may learn about the cycles of life, such as how seeds become plants, plants make flowers, flowers make seeds, and the story starts again. They may learn about how people can protect the environment and why it matters. When people learn the story of life, it also helps them ask big questions. Where did life come from? Why are people here? What is our place in the universe? What can we do to keep life safe and healthy for everyone? These questions make people curious. Curiosity is a good thing because it leads to new knowledge, new inventions, and new ways to help each other and the planet. Knowing about life also makes people think about the future. What will happen if we do not protect plants, animals, or water? How can we live in a way that helps both people and nature? Understanding the story of life gives people hope because it shows that small actions can make big changes and that working together, people can protect all the living things on Earth. Learning about how plants and animals interact, how food grows, and how water moves through the world helps people make everyday choices. People can decide to eat more fruits and vegetables, waste less food, save water, and care for plants and animals. Every small action, when added together with the actions of many other people, helps the world. When you learn about life, you also see how much is left to discover. There are many living things people do not know about yet. Every year, scientists find new species in the ocean, in forests, in deserts, and even in cities. Many parts of the world still have secrets, full of living things waiting to be found. This makes learning about life exciting because there is always something new to learn. Understanding life helps people learn to solve problems. When a city needs more food, learning about plants and farming helps farmers grow enough for everyone. When animals are in danger, learning about their needs helps people protect them. When people get sick, knowing about cells, germs, and medicine helps doctors make them well again. Studying life teaches that all things are linked. People, animals, plants, air, water, and even the smallest forms of life. It teaches how to respect nature and to respect each other. It helps people learn to share, to help, and to build a future where everyone and everything that is alive has what it needs. Knowledge about life can also be shared between countries and cultures. People from many lands have different ways of growing food, caring for the land, and saving water. By learning together and sharing ideas, people everywhere help each other protect the planet. When people protect life, they build a better world. Forests, rivers, seas, grasslands, and mountains all have living things. Keeping these places clean and safe means more plants, more animals, more beauty, and more health for everyone. Even in cities, people can make space for trees, gardens, parks, and homes for birds and insects. All these actions help keep life continuing. Learning about life is also about respect. It means respecting your own body by taking care of yourself. It means respecting other people, no matter where they live or what they look like. It means respecting all living things, from the tiniest bug to the largest whale. It means knowing that every part of life, no matter how small, has a role in keeping our world good for everyone. Understanding that life is precious can change the way people live. It helps people feel thankful for food, for clear air, for fresh water, and for the beauty of nature. It encourages people not to waste, but to find ways to use everything well. It helps people learn patience, kindness, and care. When people learn about life, they also learn about change. Life on Earth has changed over billions of years. Living things have adapted, disappeared, and appeared in new forms. People are changing too. They are inventing, learning, sharing, and trying to make the world better. Knowing this gives hope that good changes are possible. Caring for life is a job for everyone: children, adults, families, teachers, leaders, and scientists. Everyone can do something, even if it is a small thing, to help life. By learning, sharing, and acting with respect and care, people can help keep the planet full of life now and in the future. Learning about life means learning to see connections, to be curious, to respect nature and people, and to act in ways that help. It means understanding that every living thing matters and that every person can make a difference. The story of life is the story of everyone, and each person has a part to play in caring for the world and all its living things.